Hello and welcome. My name's Vicky Wushay. Over 20 years investing in property, I have seen so many people, do I want to use the word mess up or fail or be unsuccessful? However we want to couch that. And I suppose there's slight nuances in all of those. And what I want to do in this week's episode is give you three things that you can do, three questions, if you like, that you can ask that will put you in a position where, as soon as possible, you put in place the structure that will support you and hopefully guide you around the bumps in the road that could trip you up, that will put you in a strong position to create the overarching strategy that you need, to pick the most appropriate investment techniques, to highlight what errors and mistakes and pitfalls there are waiting for you, and then notice if you're about to head into one of them and grab you by the collar and pull you back so that things don't go wrong for you. I'm going to share with you some stories of some of the bigger guys back in the day and how they fell over, but also some stories of people that I've spoken to recently and the struggles that they're facing. Enjoy, and above all, just make clear, logical decisions. Don't get caught up in the heat of the moment. It is such an emotive business to be in. It's so easy to get caught up in the moment and not make clear decisions that tie your money and your time to your purpose in the way that you want, rather than relieve you of your time, relieve you of your money for somebody else's purpose. Good luck. I'll speak to you in a minute. I've been in this business as an investor, a mentor, a sourcer, and a business owner for over 20 years. And I really believe there are few in the business these days that can claim that. Even fewer of those with that level of experience are still working directly with clients. In most cases, they have gone on to teach people, train those people to then work with their clients. So you might see a front person, but you're not going to be trained by them. You're working with someone that is a level down, someone who is a disciple, who has received the knowledge from the master. I love working with people. I work very much on my terms. You'll know that if you work with me. I don't work long hours or long days. I work when it suits me. And again, if the weather's nice, you'll find me in the garden, in the tomatoes. If the weather's not so nice, you'll probably find me on holiday. And it's very much about, and you'll know this because I've spoken about the happy calendar, that lifestyle comes first. And this is part of my lifestyle, teaching people about money, because I love the fact that I've been able to turn my life around and create this for myself. And I want to do this for other people. So if you then get caught up with people who don't have experience, who don't have longevity in the market, who don't understand the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, as we've spoken about, who don't know what to do when the government makes changes, as we spoke about in the last podcast, it can go wrong. And what happens when it goes wrong? Over the years, I've seen so many so-called investors and even mentors come and go. And when you analyze what appears to have gone wrong, I would say typically the word greed comes to mind. They have gone too hard on the get rich quick road. They have crashed at that first sharp bend, and in crashing, wiped out others with them. They've taken out clients, they've taken out investors, and they've actually taken out their tenants, because if they've got properties, then all of a sudden all of these portfolios have gone. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, first off, we can never really know the exact 100% details because they're not revealed. But over the years, I have seen so many people fail. I've seen the big named people fail, and I have worked with people who were on the precipice of failing. And I'll give you some of those case studies shortly. I remember one guy that very quickly hit on a get rich strategy. I think it's an investment technique. They applied it and they grew a portfolio of properties that they did not own, but they controlled. It was a controlling technique rather than a purchasing technique. And if you have basically, well, anything that is a large system requires processes to handle it. But if you've built yourself a portfolio that you don't own, what you do is you owe money to the owner of the property, and your profit is the slice off the end. I suppose in a way it's the same as if that was the bank, but there is more pressure here because with the bank have lent you the money, but the house is in your name. And if you're struggling, there are things that you can do. You are in control of that property in a way that is different when you own it, even with a mortgage. When you only control a property through either rent to rent or back in the day, it was lease options, you don't own the property. You can't make the decisions quickly enough or even potentially dramatically enough to turn the portfolio around if for any reason the profit or the cash flow starts to drop. So you have to have excellent systems in place that are telling you, as you get bigger, I would say on a daily basis, what is going on. You need a system, you need team, and the team will create overheads, and the overheads will eat into the cash flow. So you've got to have the right size team to make sure that you're getting the cash flow, but the right size team so that you're still generating a profit. So this person I was speaking about within 2 years had been doing this technique, had started a training company, and by year 3 had quite a large portfolio and the training business on the side. Now that's very similar to me. I wouldn't say that I had a very large portfolio, but I certainly had a personal portfolio. I was sourcing and I was teaching, but I had the systems in place, and I actually went quite slowly. Even at my peak, I was buying on average 1 to 2 properties a year. So I think probably right at the beginning, the most I bought in 1 year was 10 properties for myself, family, and clients. This person was probably buying that sort of level on a monthly basis. That's a huge demand. You have to have the systems and the management in place to make sure that all of those deals are working in the way that they should, whether they're going to fall into your portfolio or whether you're doing them for clients, and running a training business and giving good value to those people who are coming to work with you. Year 3 was looking really good. And then all of a sudden they crashed. And when you actually look back at it, the reason they crashed is they got too big too fast, particularly with this particular investment technique. They hadn't seen it right the way through its life cycle. In a sense, they hadn't completed on a deal. It was lease options. So the idea of the lease option is you say to the owner, can we agree a price on this property? And they say yes. And then you say, but I don't actually want to buy it for 5 years or 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever number you come up with. We'll say 5 years. And they go, oh, okay. And for whatever reason, through your conversations, and there's reasons why all of this works, they agree. And so what you've done is you've set the price on year 1 that you are only going to pay on year 5. And the idea is that the property will have increased in value. There will be profit to split. You will probably have agreed to split some profit with the owner. There'll be all sorts of things, but there's also going to be all the legal requirements of this contract. What happens if in 5 years' time the property has gone up in value and they don't want it anymore? What happens if the property has gone down in value and you don't want to buy it anymore? So making sure that you had all those contracts right. So by growing so quickly before you'd seen the process through, you don't know whether the process even works. They had grown a portfolio without the solid foundations and even the business experience. They'd allowed the ego to take over. When I first started off, 2008 through to, I would say, probably 2014, those first 6 years were full of the guys standing at the front of the room going, look at what I've done. Look how big my business is. Look how great my portfolio is. And when you came out of these events, there was one particular event I used to go to, and you would come out of these events and all the flashy cars would be lined up and all the guys are talking to one another about how big their deals are. And then you look back now at how many of those people are still around. Many of those people who have actually been truly successful have left the property market. It was a starting point and they've gone off and they've done other things. But a lot of people have left the property market either because they've been taken to court over promises they didn't fulfill, money that they couldn't pay back, or simply portfolios that fell over. And it's very easy to get sucked into that, particularly when you get sucked in to a group where all of this conversation is going on, that get rich quick notion that I was talking about last week. Yes, there was lots of money coming in through this particular investor's business. There was a lot of money going out, and they didn't, I think, this is the bit I can make an assumption on, they didn't realize quite how much was profit or not profit. And the reason I can make that assumption with a bit of confidence is because if they realized that the money coming in and the money going out meant that they weren't making a profit, they could have done something about it. So they surely weren't either looking at whether they were making a profit, or they weren't aware of how little profit they were making. So therefore, there was this weakness in their business. The wages, the finances to sustain the beast that they had built over time was simply too much pressure for the feeble foundations that they've put in place. And I could list a handful that suffered from this sort of get rich quick through size system or mode of operating back in the time. They weren't putting in place the systems that would make sure that they could manage something that was going to grow that quickly. You look at any business out there in the let's call it the real world, not just the property world, anything that escalates, it's all about the systems. And everybody will tell you that before you start bringing on more salespeople, you've got to know that you can deliver. And you can't deliver the goods unless you can get the supplies. And you can't get the supplies unless you can pay the suppliers. And so there's this whole chain that works round. There was also, back in the day, a whole range of get rich quick, which was based on other people's money. And this is where a so-called investor borrowed private money so that they could, for example, buy for cash and then finally, having done something up, refinance their portfolio. And it's background, it's still out there now. It's a variation on BRRR, which doesn't necessarily say that you have to buy with cash, but it's this idea that you buy something, you do it up, you remortgage it, you pull all your money back out. That's what it was all about. Pull all your money back out, which does leave you vulnerable because you're at your maximum lending, and then use that money to go again. Now, that might have worked on the first little house that you bought. It might have worked on the second little house that you bought. But what I saw time and time again with these so-called investors suddenly going from a couple of little deals straight into some commercial conversion or some big development. And you were looking at projects that were millions of pounds. So they've been buying a couple £100 here, a couple 100,000 here. Then they might have moved on to their first development. They might have spent 300,000 and developed a property into 3 flats or something, and then taken that small amount of knowledge and used it and talked about the profits that probably were there in the littler deals to then get a load of people who were sucked in, who were caught up with this idea of getting rich quick, who didn't do the due diligence on them. And I'll explain that shortly. And were then in a position where they lost the money that was invested, because at the end of it, these deals did not get completed. These deals did not sell. And we used to look at a lot of these come through, often on Facebook, often in private WhatsApp groups where people were talking about who's gone down now. And when you look at what could have gone wrong, You'll see a lack of experience. You'll look at ego, which encourage them to move on to a mega deal in hope of making it big too fast. That's the thing. Both of these, I suppose, is about the angle of the trajectory. There is nothing wrong with getting really wealthy really slowly, because if you start soon enough, you have plenty of time. And what so many, and I think I've being a bit ageist here, but what I found is that when you look at it, it's a lot of young guys that were in sort of like a getting caught up in a sort of a genre, a personality of this is what I've got to look like. If I'm not doing big deals, then I'm not being successful. And these things were becoming linked. And I think I've told you the story before of the young guy that I spoke to, and when we talked, right, so what are your goals? He said, I want 100 HMOs. And I went, why? And he said, well, because if I don't have 100 properties, I won't be successful. Because I asked him where he got this number from. He said, well, you know, when I look at what everybody else is doing, if I don't have 100, I won't be successful. And if you look at this idea of keeping the numbers secret. So I remember when I launched my first book, I got in touch with some friends who'd written books already. And I asked them, how many books do I need to get printed to sell on Amazon? I've got no idea how many people will buy my book. I don't know whether, am I looking at just buying 10 books, or am I looking at buying 10,000 books? No one would tell me the truth. When I launched A Wealthy Life, which is the orange book, back in 2019, I literally got to #1 on Amazon overnight. Now, I don't have a massive database because I'm not driven by those sorts of numbers. I like the sort of numbers that come on a spreadsheet. But overnight, I got to #1 on Amazon and was classed an Amazon best-selling book. And how is that possible? Because actually success can come from very small numbers, can come very quickly if you understand what you're getting into. If I had ordered 10,000 books, not only would the upfront cost be enormous, but the time it would take for me to sell all of those books and pull that back in, because I didn't have 10,000 people on my database. If I had 1,000 people on my database, probably even 100 books would be too many, because you've got to look at the percentages. You've got to understand the return on your time and the return on your money. Now, I know from experience that getting the foundations right at first is absolutely crucial. And what do I mean by that? So let me just tell you a story of a more ordinary person. I was speaking to one of my mentees today, and I set an exercise for all my mentees to do right up front when we first start working. And that is to deal with your personal finances. And I have spoken about this so many times, the wealth tracker. During your personal finances and understanding what's important to you, your personal values, this combination of understanding your mind is so powerful. It's a combination of skills training. It's a combination of flexing your financial control muscles. It's uncovering unhelpful beliefs, and that prepares you to move forward. It reminds you of the hurdles that have come to you through experience. And I can tell you this because I've experienced those hurdles and I know what you're going to face. And that's why I've created these resources to help you, if you like, confront them now when you're not under the pressure of buying property, you're not under the pressure of starting a business or investing in something, that you're now, right at the beginning of your journey, got the time to deal with any of the emotions, any of the baggage that comes up around money. Deal with, let's speak about how much debt you're in or not in. Let's speak about how your parents behaved around money. I don't believe there's another property mentor in the UK that's got the combination of my years of practical experience investing in property, with my background as a university lecturer in education, and then this NLP training as a master NLP practitioner. And I think that is the bit that gives me the unique edge. So this mentee that I was speaking to started to do the homework that I said, and came back to me and went, wow, it has really shown me that the way I think about money now is triggered from what I saw my parents experience. And we had a long conversation about that. And I could see the realization on their face that sometimes we have childhood experiences around money. For some people, it's around love and relationships. For some people, it's about food. And that sets up in us this little pattern that as a child you created to protect child you. But you're an adult now. And when you go back and you look at those experiences, they're not quite the same as they were. They've got a different meaning. Now, with your adult experience, you can interpret what was going on in a different way. And by doing that, you can let go of anxiety, stress, and all of the negative stuff that could be attached to money, to your personal money, to investment money, to your confidence. And all of that can just go, which means you're then never going to be at risk of buying with your ego as the front decision maker. You're going to be in a position where you can be clear-headed and actually start thinking through, what does this mean on a spreadsheet? Because you're not afraid of those anymore. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a series of really property focused webinars to help you if you're thinking about investing in property, or maybe you've got a very, early stage portfolio, you've got your first property, or you've got 4 or 5 and you're struggling to actually grow, to understand what investment technique will work for you now. What's your overarching strategy? I'm going to be working through over the next, I think, 12 weeks probably, explaining to you why investing in property is a good idea, what to be looking out for, what techniques can help you create your success, your wealthy life, and how that might look if you use property as your vehicle to get it through. My goal as a mentor is going to be to share my experience in order that you can get the best out of that experience, not just in order for you to do it, but literally in the order and also in the format that's going to meet your needs. So I structure what I do very carefully. I know sometimes I get on the podcast and I go down little aisles and little stories and then look to bring it back. But sometimes those stories give you the opportunity to take the information and apply it to you versus somebody else who might pick up a different piece of information or could pick up the same story and apply it in a different way. Think about that story of the 21 days. Everybody who listens to this podcast will get something different out of the 21-day metaphor. So the framework that I share is very adaptable, very tailored to your personal goals and resources. It certainly flexes. I've worked with a lot of working mothers over the summer holidays, and I understand the pressure they're under to keep momentum, but they don't want the anxiety of missing out on being with their children because they have to go on set training days. So I work very flexibly with people over the summer holidays. I work very personally with people about their own personal goals. And that's what makes me different. That's the difference between me and the other people out there. Often you're not working with the person that you see on the marketing. Sometimes you see people on the marketing and they don't have the experience in the same way that I do. And so you know that you've got a unique experience when you work with me. Unique in that I am unique. I suppose we could say, aren't we all? But also unique in that how we will work together will be different from how I will work with someone else. My job is to help you move through the process of first acquisition, then consolidation, and then business development. And I am there with you every step of the way. I want to give you one more scare story. I recently spoke to a client who'd been sucked in by a property company, and I am going to say sucked in because when you actually looked at what they were charging her and what she was being given or receiving in return for her money, it was shocking. So first off, they were going to source a property for her. She was paying a monthly membership fee. She had been paying this monthly membership fee for some 11 months and had not got a single deal. Now they were selling her a specific deal, a property that just so happened to be in an area that I knew very well. I'd bought property in that street myself. What she was being sold at an overpriced rate was something that did not stack up. She was being told she was being delivered, being sold at a discount to her, when in actual fact, it was probably just being sold to her at market value. They were going to suggest that it needed a major refurb. So they were going to give her bridging finance in order to buy the property and fund the refurb. And then they were going to remortgage the property 3 months later. Now, we know that there is a 6-month rule, which means that remortgaging within that period is much harder. If you can prove that you have actually done work of a significant value, then there are some lenders that will consider this. But to buy a property at basically street value, then carry out a major refurb of which the price she was paying was over the top of what I would have paid for the work, the list of works that were being done. When you then actually looked at the actual cost of the list of works that were being done, she was asking a lender to revalue the property, or this company was asking them to revalue the property at 150% of recent solds on the street. Now, why, for example, buy a property when all the properties are on the street at 100,000, buy it at 100,000, maybe spend 20,000 on it, but then ask a lender to believe that it's worth 160, 170,000. But when you looked at the spreadsheet, what it did was that remortgaged and now enabled her to pull all her money back out and pay the bridging finance costs. So she would put all her money back in, get all her money back out, and then be in a position where she would still have her pot to go again. Now, that's very attractive, isn't it? Because what that says is that I can cycle my money through deals like this. I could do one of these, if it takes 3 months, I can do one of these every 3 months. Even if I just did 2 a year, every year I'd suddenly have 2 buy-to-let properties. But what was missing was, if you then actually went and looked afterwards, if the lender had agreed that the value was that high, when you looked at what the mortgage monthly payment would be on that elevated loan, remember that loan is 75% of this new value, which is way above what the street was truly worth. The cost of that mortgage was within £25 of the maximum rent you were going to get on that street. So on her behalf, I spoke to my letting agent without letting them know what it was. I said, I'm looking to buy property on this street. What's the maximum sort of rents that we're going to get? And the difference between the mortgage and the rent coming in was £25. So the rent coming in immediately has to be less because you've got to pay your letting agent fees. You're going to have annual gas certificates. You've got annual insurance. You've got what if something goes wrong, and all of that for £25 a month. I think if you were to offer me a property that was very definitely guaranteed below the value of the street and needed absolutely no work doing to it at all, but the profit that I would get after the rent came in, and let's just assume the letting agent fees had been deducted, and then the mortgage, and I was only going to make £25 a month, I would not buy that deal. And I can tell you another thing, the lender would not lend on that basis because the lender wants what they call coverage. So when the rent is coming in, they want that rent to be, and there's different numbers for different lenders, but at least 125% of what the mortgage is. So it has to be more than the mortgage cost is going to be there, because lenders know that the easiest way to make a client of theirs fail to make the payments on that loan is to lend them money when there isn't sufficient profit coming out. So in the end, we had a big conversation and they decided that they were going to write a letter and get out of this deal and ask for their money back. And I helped them, formulate that letter so they could do. I've recently worked with another client, sadly to say, that they have been robbed by another sourcing company. So the family had a property that, let's call it, grandma owned. Grandma had let granddaughter live in that property. Grandma has now passed. The will has been sorted out. And in order for everybody to get their share, granddaughter's home needs to be sold. It's what happens. The family have then gone to a sourcing company. The sourcing company have sold that property on to a foreign investor. So not only has the family been underpaid, they could actually have just put that house out on the open market and they would have got more money. But the foreign investor has now paid more than the property is worth. And then, and this is the clever bit, and I suppose it's what sold them, the granddaughter has been given permission to stay in the house. So what they're saying is that, in effect, the granddaughter was grandma's tenant. No money changed hands. And so she's staying as a tenant in the property for the foreign investors. But she's staying in the property on a below market rent because that's all she could afford. So the local rent in the area is easily in the 700s, mid to high 700s. The foreign investor is getting £495 a month. So not only has the family been robbed, but this foreign investor has been robbed. And so understanding when you come across a good deal is absolutely crucial. You have to make informed decisions. And you cannot make an informed decision if you're leading with ego and you're leading with a desperation to get rich quick. And that's why auctions work, and that's why casinos work, because auctions and casinos do the same thing. They ramp up the emotional atmosphere in the room to make people part with their money in a way that isn't logical, isn't sane, isn't something they do if they were out on the street. But once they're in that room, there's this, come on, the price is going up and up and up and up, or spin the wheel, just lay another bet, you'll win the next time. You could get 32 times the chip if you put it down here. All of these techniques are designed to part you from your money. So how do you get to a point where you can know who is the right mentor for you? Let's just talk about mentors rather than sourcing agents. Who is the right person who can teach you? Because if you learn, then you can work out whether you want to source your own deals or whether you want to go to somebody else. So I think there are just 3 things that you can think about: who, how, and what. Let's look at those. So who is going to train you? Never mind what the marketing says. Who is going to train you? Is it the headliner, the person on the stage, the person in the book, the person on the marketing, the one with all the experience? Or is it one of their past clients? Are you going to be taught by, if you like, the godlike figure or the disciple? That's what you're looking at. Who is it? The primary person or someone they have trained? And then once you understand who is going to train you, and bear in mind, if it's not the headliner, how do you know who's going to be your trainer? How do you know whether it's Tom, Dick, Harry, Sue, Fred, or Jemima? You need to understand who, because what you want to do is you want to understand their experience, their number of years that they have been actively investing. What techniques have they used to accumulate their personal portfolio? What background do they bring to the table? What else have they got? Are they also an architect or a surveyor? Were they a maths teacher? Are they a former accountant? Have they run businesses in the past? And that will help you understand more about them in their entirety. So it's not just about how many properties they've got, how long they've held those properties through what cycles, and What else do they bring to the table? And then above all, do you like them? Because if you do not connect with your mentor, is it possible to learn from someone you don't like? You think about school. You think about the teachers you liked. You enjoyed the classes. You enjoyed the experience much more. And in enjoying it more, you do more, you put more effort into it, you learn more quickly. And I think you learn in a way that embeds the knowledge. And that person, because hopefully they like you back, is there to support you in your success. You're not just a number in a room that is making somebody rich because you're paying to be part of a room. You're actually having a direct relationship with someone who cares whether you're successful or not. And that's key. And I'm not saying I'm the only person like that. There are other people out there, but are you asking the right question? Who's going to train you? What is their experience? How many years of active investing have they done? What range of techniques have they used? What extra background do they bring to the table? And above all, do you like them? And then how they train you. As a former educator, understanding how someone prefers to receive their knowledge is absolutely crucial. Are you someone who likes to read? Are you someone who likes to watch, as in watch videos? So are you a reader? Are you a video watcher? Do you like to listen? Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you must like podcasts. So you like take your knowledge in auditorily, I can never say that word, but through your ears. And then the other way is that you might be somebody who's practical, that what you might want is some headlines, and then you want to go away and work it out for yourself. Hold on, don't tell me anymore. I need to make sense of this for myself. Oh yeah, okay. This is round, this is square. I understand. This fits in there. Okay, I'm ready for the next piece of knowledge. Just give me a headline. Yeah, okay, right, got that. Don't say any more, please. I'd like to apply that. Now, I was very much like that with maths. I literally used to sit in a maths class. I worked out that the teacher was working her way through the book. I did all the exercises in the book ahead of her. And then I didn't doing my maths in my maths class. I did my English homework because I found listening to someone teach me maths fried my brains completely. I went from being an exceptional maths student at O level, what they call GCSE now, to just being above a fail by the time I came to A level. And why? Because at A level, there was only 3 of us in the class. And she just talked at us, and I could not press pause, could not get her to stop talking so that I could go, hold on. Yeah, okay, so that's like this, that's like that. Right, I understand that. Go again, please. I didn't have that chance. How do you like to learn? And therefore, how are they going to train you? Does their system meet your needs? Is it online? Is it face to face? Is there a set structure? Do you have to go through 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5? Or are you going to work with someone who's going to deliver you the right piece of information at the right time to meet your needs to move you forward? How much money are you paying and how much time are you getting for that money? So almost in a way, what's the hourly rate, or how much interaction are you getting? How much of that time is online? How much of that time is resources? How much time is in group? And how much time is one-to-one? And then generally what resources are included? And then I think take a step back at this point and go, will this work for me? Okay, so I know that the experience is there, but the way they're going to deliver it just doesn't work for me. Or you might find that actually, yeah, the delivery is good, but I didn't really like anybody that they were going to put me with. Do I still want to go ahead with this particular mentoring program if it's not 100% right for me? And then I think the third thing I would go with is what's the proof? It's very easy to get the testimonials. Goodness me, done it in the past. You run an event, you G everybody up, everybody's really happy. They've had a lovely time in the room, they're buzzing. See, that emotion is up again. They've probably had good food. They're just about to go for a drink with the host, and that makes them feel good. And out comes the camera. What's it like? What have you learned? Oh my God, it's amazing. I've given those testimonials myself, 15, 20 years ago. and regret that some of those are out there in the world now, because the reality, once you leave that highly charged emotional experience, is actually that doesn't work in the real world. That doesn't work in practice. So what's the proof? What's beyond simply the testimonials? Now, there is a website, and we'll put a link in this, that is set up by the wonderful Cyril Thomas, and you'll know that I've done interviews with him before. And let me see if I've got the name right. The Property Educators Accreditation Scheme. And what this does is it invites people that say, okay, I'm a property educator, to, if you like, put themselves on the line and put themselves on this website so that people can comment on how good their experiences have been with them. Now, I'm on there. I'm now an accredited member. I think I'm like one of the foundation members. I'm rubbish. I haven't got round to doing all of my profile up there, but you can see who is accredited. And maybe that's the piece of proof that these people have been. I mean, I had to go through a 6-month probation period. I had to prove that I have all of the legitimate background. I had to prove that I have the insurances and everything in place. How are you checking that what is said on the tin is actually what's in the tin? So who are you going to work with? And do they have the right sort of experience to help you get from where you are now to where you want to be? Do you like them? And are they going to train you in a way that meets your needs, that allows for your individual learning style, your individual goals, or are you just going to be lumped into a group? And does that work for you? And then what's the proof of people who've worked with them in the past? What is their success rate? How happy are people with them? Now, there's no guarantees in life. We know that. Well, I mean, that's not true, because there are, aren't there? Death and taxes. That's what I think, that might even be a Shakespeare comment. But death and taxes are the only things that are guaranteed. But you can learn how to mitigate the risk right from the very start by getting the right mentor. Because if it does go wrong, this is the person that's going to help you put it back together again. But if you get this person right at the beginning, what you're doing is you're investing in a mentor, someone who is going to be by your side to support you so that it doesn't go wrong. Like I say, no guarantees, but that's what we're looking to do. Again, more recently, come across a client who's done a bit of work with me, but they've paid a vast amount of money to have mentoring with somebody else. And yes, they have learnt a specific technique. Great. They've got their first property. Great. They enjoyed the experience. Great. But there was no overarching financial strategy. So here they are. They've done the first deal and now they're stuck. They don't know how to go again, because they haven't had that foundation education right at the beginning that says this is the bigger picture. So you're going to do this one deal, and then this is how you're going to do the next deal. All that part was missing. And now they're struggling, and hence why we were having a conversation about knowing what to do next. And if they knew right at the beginning that they were going to do this, then that, I think they probably would have picked maybe a different first deal as well. So mitigate your risk right from the start. I think get your mentor very early on. And I'm not just saying that because I am a mentor, but because that can help you save wasting money and mistakes right at the beginning. When you get the mentor, you need to really understand who they are and how they're going to help you and what's the evidence of this. Do your homework and save the heartache from, I don't know, wasting a lot of money. How many people do you know or have you come across? I have millions. Well, okay, millions is an exaggeration, but I would say thousands of people that have paid a lot of money into training companies and are now not successful property investors with property portfolios, with a return on that money, a return on that time put in that means it was worth it. So I think that's what you've really got to look at. When I used to do my training back in 2008, I was in rooms every Saturday with 60 people in the room, maybe more sometimes. And I would say to you now, when I look back, maybe if 10% of those people actually made it all the way through the course, to the point where they invested in property and they've got a successful portfolio, and I can see them because we're still friends on Facebook. You see popping up what they're up to, that they have created the lives they want. That was maybe a 10% success rate from that particular company. And they were charging £20,000 easily way back in 2008. And they still are to this day. And they're still teaching the same stuff. So you need to do your homework. Don't get caught up in the emotion of the auction room, the gambling style, get rich quick. Work out what you need and then pick the person so that you don't make the mistakes. Some of the examples I've shared with you here, you're then not going to be faced with, okay, now what happens? It's gone wrong. How do I fix this? That's all I want for you. I hope that this episode has given you something to think about. At the very least, let's focus on those 3, if you like, criteria for picking your mentor. Who's going to train you? How are they going to train you? And what's the proof that this is going to be worth your time and your money and your effort, and that you're going to get the outcome that you want at the other end? Of course, if I can help you in any way, if you want to talk to me about it, working with me, then obviously I am here for you. But if you're thinking about taking a course with someone else and you want to bat these questions backwards and forwards with me, you're more than welcome to. Whatever I can to do to help you, that is my purpose. So thank you very much for listening, and I will speak to you again next week. I think there were a lot of stories in this episode of the things that can go wrong, and I probably could carry on doing millions of stories about things that have gone wrong, mistakes that I've made, mistakes that I've seen other people make. And I suppose that really we could do that with any sort of business, whether you wanted to set up a taxi firm or a coaching company or, anything. There are mistakes that can be made in business. But how many mistakes come with the sort of level of debt that property investing does? If you set up a coaching business, what you might do is borrow some money to get you going on the marketing and the website. And so, yes, there is a bit of debt, but you're not taking out a loan of 75% of the value of every coaching client you're taking on. Property requires you to take on 75% debt. Every house that you buy, every property that you buy. And then on top of that, debt that you're landing yourself with, you're also going to put some of your cash on the top of that. So you need to be clear that you've got the right overarching strategy and the right person there supporting you so that you make the best decisions possible. There are no guarantees in this business or really any other business, but making the best possible decisions, because the person by your side is there to support you achieve your goals in the way that suits you best, is the most important decision that you can make. That's the key decision. That's where your success or your failure lie, literally on that point. Who is supporting you? I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. And of course, as with always, please do book a call if I can help you. Watch out for news in the coming weeks of a new community that we are launching called A Wealthy Life Community. Click the link in the show notes that you can join the wait list and be one of the first to hear more news when that actually comes live in September. And of course, there are loads of resources on my website. Do check out the resources, from past podcasts to all the books that I've written, from the Wealthy Life resource to the Values Manual to all of the different books. All of the stories, all of the lessons in there are designed to help you be successful. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week when we're going to really get into property and why it's a good idea.